Welcome back, students. This afternoon we're going to enjoy a fun book about George Washington, but let's have a little reminder, since it's been a while since we talked about him. He was the first president. He was born in Virginia. He was a surveyor and a farmer, a brave leader of U.S. soldiers, and first U.S. president is called the father of our country. This book is really fun. Actually, it's a book I promised you before that I'd be reading to you, and it's called George Washington's Teeth. And George Washington had problems with his teeth. You know, dentists weren't so good in the old days, and so a lot of people had problems with their teeth, but George especially. And if I look at the cover, I see all different people looking up at a portrait of George Washington. And there's some hippopotamuses down here. I wonder what they're about. What connection a hippo or a walrus would have to do with George Washington's teeth. Okay, anyway, here we go. Oh, I forgot to look on the back. On the back, I see, what does that look like? Maybe some false teeth? Here we go. If I look at the title page, George Washington's Teeth, written by Deborah Chandra and Madeleine Comora, pictures by Brock Cole, Farrar, Straus, Giroux, New York. Okay, so I see some portraits of George Washington. I think the illustrator must have found some real old portraits and then did his illustrations of them. And they're those same funny kind of false teeth as I saw on the back. Oh, he's really going to have some tooth problems. Okay, here we go. Oh, and here's just a little explanation at the beginning of the story. All of his life, George Washington had problems with his teeth and worked hard to save them. This story is based on what really happened to George and his teeth. The Revolutionary War, George hoped, would soon be won, but another battle with his teeth had only just begun. Do you notice something about the sound of the book? It's rhyming. George Washington rushed into town. The dentist heard his shout. "Hold still," he said, then gave a yank. A rotten tooth popped out. All that night, George tossed and moaned. Another tooth was sore. But at the dawn, he saddled up and galloped off to war. So even though he has a terrible toothache, he has to get on his horse and go. George reached New York as British ships invaded every port. Preparing for a fierce attack, his soldiers built a fort. Inside, he rubbed his swollen gums with soothing oil of myrrh until a sentinel cried out, "Here come the British, sir!" Charging on the field, George thought, "There's something in my mouth." He spat into his handkerchief. Another tooth came out. "This can't be happening," George gasped. "What if someone should see? If word got out I'm losing teeth, my men would laugh at me." While no one looked, he wrote a note his dentist would receive. "Please come," it said. "I'll need your help when I get home on leave." Back at home, George lost more teeth till he had only 10. "Oh, Martha dear," George cried, "I fear I'll never eat again." She fed him mush and pickled tripe, but when guests came to dine, he sneaked one of his favorite nuts. Then he had only 9. Maybe you can keep track of the numbers of teeth. Usually in class we do that. It's kind of fun. So here he lost some more teeth, and then at dinner, instead of sticking with the soft stuff, he ate something hard and busted another tooth out. So we're down to 9. See if you can keep track. George crossed the icy Delaware with 9 teeth in his mouth. In that cold and pitchy dark, 2 more teeth came out. 2 more. So we're down from 9 to 7. Snow fell on George at Valley Forge. His blue coat hung in tatters. By then he'd only 7 teeth that couldn't even chatter. Yet bravely George led forth his men, coat and pigtail flying. While cannons boomed, he held his jaw and groaned, "I think I'm dying." Oh, poor guy having toothaches all the time. The redcoats fled. George won the war. When he returned alive, Martha checked for 7 teeth, but counted only 5. There she is counting when he gets back to Mount Vernon. He hid the evening of her ball, ashamed his friends would see. That night the dentist came again. George lost another 3. Oh, and we know George liked dancing and music a lot, but he was so embarrassed he was just hiding during the party. Poor George had 2 teeth in his mouth the day the votes came in. The people had a president, but one afraid to grin. Look at his face. Oh, poor guy. A portrait artist came to George. He said, "I know a trick. I'll pad your mouth with cotton balls to puff your sunken lips." So remember, if you don't have our teeth in our mouth is what gives our face and this area of our face its shape. And if you don't have any teeth in there, you're kind of, like you don't have any teeth. So he wants to make his mouth look right for the portrait that he's going to paint of George. So he says, "I'll pad your mouth with cotton balls to puff your sunken lips." George stood up to have a look. He fell back on his fanny, on his butt. "It doesn't look like me," he roared. "It looks like Martha's granny." He yanked the cotton from his mouth, then gasped, "What have I done?" The cotton held a rotten tooth. Now George had only 1. So there they're going to put cotton in his mouth to look better. There he falls down because he doesn't like the picture. And there he is, last tooth. George still had that tooth the night a knock came at the door. "I've brought false teeth," the dentist called, "teeth that won't get sore." George put them in, but when he smiled, springs snapped against his tongue. Out flew those teeth. Ah! George shrieked, "They've knocked out my last one." So the false teeth did not work. "Oh no," George moaned, "I'm toothless." He kept his mouth shut tight. He couldn't sleep. He paced the floor and prayed with all his might. "If only I had teeth," thought George. He pondered what to do. "Aha!" he cried. "All my old teeth might help make something new." He searched Mount Vernon's bedchambers, the pantry, parlors, halls, through shelves, desk drawers, and musty floors of every horse's stall. So he's searching all over for his old teeth. George found no teeth. Alas, they're gone. A great sob shook his shoulders. Through tears, he peered in one last chest, leaped up and yelled, "My molars!" Oh, he found some. With plaster and those teeth he found, George poured a sample mold that showed the dentist how to make false teeth George hoped would hold. The dentist took strong hippo tusk and carved a set to size, each tooth secured with screws of gold that lit up George's eyes. Oh, so they're going to try again to make false teeth, but this time that match what George's teeth really were like. Oh, can you guess the story's end? Those new teeth fit just right. And round the ballroom with his friends, George danced all through the night. Oh, look, he's happy again that he can join the party and enjoy dancing. And here in the back is a timeline with important events in George's life. We won't go over the whole timeline, but I think it's interesting to see, like, this portrait is like the portrait that the illustrator looked at to draw the pictures on the title page of George. Okay, that was drawn from that, right? And then down here on the last page, I can help zoom in so you can see a photograph of what George Washington's false teeth really looked like. Yeah? Okay. So, I hope you enjoyed that fun poem, that fun long poem, that book about George Washington's teeth. And again, it's really so great to see you guys again. Please be sure to get out and get some fresh air today. Be sure to keep washing your hands, cover your coughs and sneezes, help your family around the house. Be sure to do some writing and some reading every day. I want to thank those of you who continue to send me emails. Somebody sent a video to me of some research that they had done about plants, and they made like a little report with a video and illustrations, and they presented their report, and the video was so enjoyable to see. And others of you sent me pictures and illustrations of Abraham Lincoln and George Washington and Obama, our prior president, the president right before President Trump. So it's just really great to get your emails and your artwork and your videos, and please keep it all coming. I love you guys. Take care, and I'll see you tomorrow. Oh, elbow bump.